It's time for TWiT This Week in Tech. This show has an unusual ending. You're going to see it in just a bit, but in a moment, we'll go to the studio where Wesley Faulkner will join us, Georgia Dow, Lisa Schmeiser. Lots to talk about, their thoughts on the Apple Vision Pro headset coming up. We'll also talk about AI in the workplace, why so many people are getting laid off, and where all those tech workers are going, and why next time you get invited to a Zoom call with the CFO and all your financial friends from your office, you might want to think twice about sending them $25 million. Didn't work out so well. TWiT is next.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is TWiT, This Week in Tech, episode 965, recorded Sunday, February 4th, 2024. Baby's first layoff. This Week in Tech is brought to you by Rocket Money. If I asked you how many subscriptions you have, would you be able to list them all and how much you're paying? I couldn't. But let me tell you something. As soon as I started using Rocket Money, I found them, and I have saved so much money since. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions. Monitors your spending, too, and helps you lower your bills. Rocket Money, it has more than 5 million users, including me, and it's helped save its members an average of $720 a year. It's saved me more than that every year for the last couple of years. And total, more than $500 million in canceled subscriptions. You can see all your subscriptions in one place. If you see something you don't want, you can cancel with a tap. And here's the best part. You never have to get on the phone with customer service. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/twit. That's rocketmoney.com/twit. rocketmoney.com/twit. It's time for TWiT This Week in Tech, the show where we talk about the week's tech news. I am so happy to welcome our panel here today. Some of my favorite people. Lisa Schmeiser was going to come down, I guess over, but the rivers are a little high right now, so she decided to stay home. NoJitter.com is the website. She's editor-in-chief there. Hi, Lisa. Good to see you.
It's so good to see you. I'm sorry I can't see you in person. I was really looking forward to it.
You know, weather's bad everywhere. This is not a good time. And we are in the middle of, I have learned, a mid-latitude cyclone. So that doesn't sound like something you'd want to drive to or through.
No.
Anyway, great to have you. That's why Zoom is so cool. Also here from Montreal, where I bet it's a little chilly right now, Georgia Dow. Hello, Georgia.
Hey, how are you doing?
I am well. Oh, we're in your art room now. This is good. This is good. Do you do your art here?
I do like a whole bunch of stuff in this room. It's
Nice.
like my little room with everything
it.
there. But I do a lot of art here.
Yeah. So nice to see you. Georgia is a psychotherapist, so we like to check in with her from time to time. She is at Westmount Therapy. In fact, her email's Georgia at Westmount Therapy, and you can also follow her. She does so many great YouTube videos. A therapist reacts videos to all sorts of things at youtube.com/Georgia Dow, D-O-W. Let's see, what's the latest one? Stop Being Afraid?
The latest ones are on,
The
so I
Heron.
did the Green-Eyed Samurai, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And now I'm doing Has Been Hotel.
Has Been Hotel. What is, I don't even know what that is.
So that's kind of like a cult phenomenon. Like it's like pretty much pushed by people, and it's just a really cute story. It has a lot of psychological kind of aspects to it, which makes it really nice because they're in hell and trying to rehabilitate hell so they can get to heaven. So there's like a lot of psychology into it, and there's a lot of songs that are exceptionally catchy. So it looks kind of cutesy, but it has a lot of really deep, meaningful themes. So we kind of go into it. Though the next one will be on like sexual abuse. So it's going to be like this really cute little cutesy looking videos, but the topic's going to be really very deep and heavy.
But that's what's cool about your idea, because you can talk about real things, but when you use pop culture as the backdrop, it makes it okay, right? It makes it accessible.
And it makes it more fun. And I think that when it's something that you enjoy, you're going to pay more attention to it. So I think that it's a nice way to learn. Like we should be learning all these things in school, right? Like this should be part of our learning is about ourselves and why do we do things and how to set boundaries and negative self-talk. So we do it through a medium that people already enjoy. And so I think that it catches more people that way than just basic psychology, which can seem dry and preachy.
Nice. Do you still have those glasses that you wore in the Who Betrayed Mizu episode? Because I think you really...
I do. They're actually just sitting next to me right now.
Quite cute in those.
Yeah, it's a lot. I just like to dress up. I'll be honest. I'm just like a child. I just like to dress up. It's just any reason to dress up for me. It's like, yes.
Also here, I haven't seen him in a while. He's now in Roanoke, and I like that. And so does Lisa Schmeiser. We'll explain that in a bit. Wesley Faulkner is back in the studio. Hi, Wesley.
It's so good, and I'm so glad to be back. It's been the thing that I felt like has been missing in my life, so I'm really happy.
You were the thing that was missing in my life, so it's perfect. It's great to have you back. We really did miss you, and you've settled in Roanoke. You said before the show that you said your wife and you realized suddenly, we could live anywhere, and so you chose Roanoke. This wasn't a job chose it for you. You chose it.
Yes, we're like, we move around too much. Where's the place that we're going to like settle? And we've thought of a lot of things, and we actually tried to use ChatGPT. It did not work.
Oh, really?
Really? To find out where you're going to live?
Yes, we were like, look at the government statistics and stuff like that. But no, it didn't work. So, but my wife is a researcher, so she was able to take on that duty.
Nice, wonderful. And you brought the kids. You didn't leave them in the Midwest, so that's good. That's thoughtful. And it turns out Schmeiser went to Virginia Tech, just down the road.
Yes. The minute Wesley said Roanoke, I said, Mill Mountain Coffee. Please tell me you're going.
You said Roanoke's the big city.
It was the big city when I was there. I'm not going to mention when I went to Virginia Tech, but back when I went, Roanoke was the big city, and Blacksburg was just up 81 away. It's Southwestern Virginia is so beautiful, and it's got so much to offer in so many ways.
Mountains are amazing.
And the rivers are phenomenal. Yeah. The New River is one of the oldest rivers in the world. You're right near the New River Gorge National Park in West Virginia.
Kind of a misnomer then.
And the climate's nice too, right?
Yeah, it's called Goldilocks climate in terms of it's not too hot, not too cold. It's great.
That's why I like Petaluma.
And I have a talk at Virginia Tech next month, and so
you do. Nice. Oh. What are you going to talk about?
I have to look it up. I was just asked.
But like me.
It's about,
I don't know. I'll find out when I get there.
It's about just like guiding people who are like graduating from university into tech as a career, what things to look out for.
Oh, that's perfect.
Ways of navigating it.
Wesley hosts a podcast called Radical Respect with Kim Scott. It's about her book, which is coming out in May, about respect at work, which, boy, that would be nice.
Yes.
It's a good idea.
That there has to be a book about it.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
It's just like a given.
Seems like a good idea. I don't know. Call me crazy. So I noticed none of you, and by the way, this will probably be the last show on the TWiT network where this is true, are wearing a Vision Pro headset.
No.
Now, I'm surprised, Georgia, because I know you're a big VR fanatic. Are you going to buy a VP?
Maybe it's up, like it's in the, like it would be the one that I was missing, right? So like, do I just get it to get all the set? It doesn't pull me the same way that the sets of VR do, just because there's not really much gaming in it.
Right.
So do I really want AR, right? Like, how does this enhance my life?
Yeah. It's not. Okay, let me say something. It doesn't
really fit.
Let me say something right up front, and I've only had about a few minutes with it because Micah Sargent bought one, and I played with it a little bit on Friday when he got it.
Of course he did. Yeah.
It isn't AR. Yes, there's a knob you can see pass through, but it's no more AR than the Meta Quest 3 or the Meta Quest Pro. You're really in a VR experience. They call it spatial computing, but it's really a VR headset. Most of the stuff that you're doing is VR with a background. Yeah. Now here's
Leo,
somebody doing something.
Question for you, Leo.
Okay.
Since you had some experience with this,
yes,
one of the reasons, like, Apple products tend to go because they managed to define a problem people didn't realize they had, but pervasively had, and they managed to solve that problem. Like the iPhone solved the problem of, I want to communicate with people, but I also want my digital world at my fingertips. It really did that. Like the camera plus the phone, it identified the need to be social and the need to also take your information sphere with you. And the Apple Watch effectively solved the problem of, I don't want to have to look at my phone all the time, but I do need something that will help me sift and alert me to information, whether it's maps or communication or time or whether what have you. And the question I have for you is, what problem do you think Apple has identified or is trying to frame and solve with the headset? Like,
anybody?
What will people get out of this?
Bueller?
Are you calling a friend? Are you calling a friend on this one?
Well, I mean, my answer is going to be somewhat facetious, although genuine, which is it solves the problem of other people, because it is. I mean, already we got a problem with people in their smartphones spending more time looking at this screen than at the world around them. Vision Pro just amps that up. When you're wearing that, you are in your own little world. I think Apple knew this was a problem. That's why they put it turns out it didn't work very well, eyes in the front, so you can supposedly see the person's eyes. That does not work, I should say. It's a poor experience. I think that was them saying, yeah, this is, the problem with this is you're kind of in your own little world here. I think it may well be 100 years from now, people look back at Apple and don't remember all the great things they did, but remember the fact that they ruined the lives of an entire generation by making them completely isolated from their fellow man. Here's a video of Casey Neistat who says it's the best technology he's ever used. He's skateboarding down the streets of New York wearing a Vision Pro. That is moronic. I mean, he's obviously doing it for YouTube hits. There's his avatar. All of these look awful, uncanny valley creepy. Are
you about to take the Polar Express to your meeting?
Yes, it's very Polar Express. Actually, it's not even as good as a Polar Express. He even rode the subway in this thing. It seems to me, look, I'm not going to knock the technology. I think Apple did as good a VR headset as you could possibly do. But it doesn't answer the question that you just asked, which is, why would somebody want to strap a computer on their head? What in your life does it change? Now, let me ask Georgia, because you're a psychologist and you're a VR fanatic. Answer Lisa's question. What does this give people that they don't already have? What problem does it solve?
Well, I think that's actually the problem that I think that they're going to have with selling it, is that it doesn't do the thing that I like about VR is that I can live an experience that I cannot live in real life. I can be a fighter. I can visit Louvre. I can go inside of the pyramids, and it's realistic of what they look like. So I could do brain surgery. They can take a look at how to put pieces together and actually do it. And that VR does that better than anything that can do it besides real life. And so I could do an exposure for like spider fear, and it's exceptionally effective. If you've ever done like the plank experience, it's terrifying.
The plank is amazing. I did that in the Meta Quest, actually in the Quest Pro. You take an elevator up to the 30th floor. It's all VR, imaginary, and the elevator doors opens up, and there's, oh my God, there's a street 30 floors down, and there's a plank that goes out, and they say, go ahead, walk out. And it's really hard to trick your body, even though you know perfectly well you're not going to fall. You're on the floor in your house. It's terrifying.
Yes. And the wonderful, cool part about that is that when I'm doing exposure therapy, like I can't simulate. I can go to a bridge where we usually drive to a heavy bridge and we lean over, or we fly inside of a plane to deal with airplane phobia. That's exceptionally expensive. Like you're paying for my time or paying for a plane. It's really difficult, but VR can do that. And it can do that better than anything else. And as the last part, you don't start with that at the beginning, but as the last part of therapy, that works really well. But Apple's Pro, it does not really solve any problem that we already have. And it doesn't do anything better than what is already there. They don't have a real killer game that you're going to be able to deal with. They don't really have an interface that is the Minority Report cool, where you can move everything around. And so though you can do things in it, it's more of a hindrance than it is a benefit. And I'm not saying it's not even exceptionally light, which another piece that bothers me about the headsets is that they are really heavy and eventually you get kind of tired of wearing them. But it also carries this barrier to being with other people because the eyes don't really work. We're missing part of the face. It is really obvious that you're wearing it and what you're doing when you're in it. And so it also creates this isolation from other people. And so it doesn't really enhance communication or being able to connect with people while you're wearing this. And so the inside world, I don't find is that great that you would want to be in it. It's not that cool or exhilarating or makes things easier. And so I think that Lisa's question, I think it's like the perfect question because I don't actually think that it solves anything. There's no pull. And I love VR. Like I am the person that is there for VR. And I'm look at this and I go, meh, like I have a computer screen. I like leaving it. I don't want to carry my computer screen with me everywhere. That is not a benefit. That's a hindrance. I like to disconnect. And when I'm disconnected, I want to be disconnected. And I don't have that Terminator experience where everything is given labels and weights so that whatever I pour out a cup of a bit of flour and it already tells me the weight and grams of the flour so I know my ingredient. Like that would be cool for me if it was like this assistant that was like, oh, you need more flour, that's not going to work, or go check the oven because you've put it on for too long, or your handwriting, you've misspelled this word while I was actually writing it. Like that would be like if I had a virtual assistant that would like be there to be able to help me through life, then I'd be like, this is interesting on the business sense of it.
So what's interesting, Georgia, about what you said is you're identifying computing in a way where it would be both ambient and contextual, where you wouldn't be in virtual reality. You'd basically be kind of everting the experience so that your assistant pops on in a contextually appropriate way. I think about this with my Apple Watch. One of my favorite functions for it is when I'm in a new city and I tap out directions somewhere. I don't look like an obvious tourist because I can just check my watch discreetly and go. You're not there. And it's ambient augmented computing. And that to me seems to be where the most effective use cases are. It was the same way with the phone. You could argue it's the same way with the iPad because the iPad is a productivity tool, but it's one you can pick up and take to different contexts with you. Like I see it at the farmer's market when people are ringing things up. I see people doing homework on it. I see people playing games. It's a multimedia device, things like that. Leo's already alluded to the social isolation you're imposing on yourself when you stick this thing on your face. And you've talked about that too. And I just keep asking, what problem, what did they identify where they're like, yes, this is where the future of computing is? Because it seems almost like a Palm Pilot where like it's halfway to where you want to be, but it's missing some element,
The biggest problem is that they are selling this for everyone. They are saying this is for sale and anyone can buy it. If they had restricted it saying, hey, if you're locked in a place like solitary confinement, or this is a way to get some therapeutic escape. It reminds me of the time or the vision of like Epcot, where you would go there and you'd see the future, and they would say all of these scenarios are ways that the world will be. Technology will help the world, and this is the way that everyone will live. They haven't done that with the Vision Pro. They haven't said this is our, pardon the pun, vision for how it should be used. I understand to me, it's a chicken and an egg problem where they have to have the hardware, so the software that can be developed to take advantage of these. But the marketing is most of the problem. They haven't marketed to the right people because they haven't said who the right people are.
They may not know. I mean, I think, aren't they trying to find out? Isn't that what this is?
That's the problem. If they don't know now of who is there, I can understand that they can say, we meant this for this demographic, but these other demographics are finding some use for it as well. Yeah. But they didn't do that. They didn't even say who this is for and then allow people to buy it just in general. Because I can say, like, I'm the smartest Black person on this podcast, and that's a fact. And they could do the same thing. We're saying this is the best thing for, and make a very narrow scope and still be true and be right. And so that is part of the marketing, is that they just said, everyone should buy it, and everyone should not buy it because they haven't set the appropriate expectations.
And they've put a lot of their time and efforts into making a whole bunch of little things that are good, but nothing that's great, nothing that's life-changing, nothing that's life-enhancing, right? Like if it had its translator in, and so when I went to a grocery store that had everything in a different language, it was all for me translated so I could read everything as I went. And it was like, this is going to change the way that you're going to hear every word that someone speaks in a different language in your language. Like that would be something where I'm like, oh, this reaches out and it enhances my life. Though I would probably be just asking for it to get stolen if I'm walking around in a strange place where I don't know where I'm going. But they haven't really figured out any problem that I think that will make people want this. Yeah. And the way that VR is already used, it doesn't do. And it doesn't do it at all. Like, not that Apple has ever been a pioneer of gaming besides like pocket gaming, which I'm totally fine too. Like if you could find a really cool way to be able to deal with that, or mobility issues, but I don't know. I don't know why I would want this. I want it just because I'm like, I'd like to try it out because it's new, but do I actually want it because I think this is something that I will use and it will make my life better in any way, shape, or form? I don't.
Yeah. I have the same feeling about the Humane pin. They did not dial in the right person. The right person that they think will say, thank God they made this because this will save me a lot of hassle.
What about the R1? Did you look at the little $200 R1?
It's nice. I mean, it's cheaper, but it's the same thing. What is this allowing me to do that I haven't been able to do?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, Lisa. Yeah.
And for whom, right? Yeah. Not everyone should buy this, and they should just say who it's for.
No, I don't know if anyone should buy this.
What if though? I mean, people have told me
the battery power is 2 hours.
Yeah.
What is up with that?
Well, you could plug it in while you're using it if you don't mind being tethered.
Yeah, but then if you're tethered in, what's the use in having a system that is like standalone on its head if you have to be hooked up to a wire in the first place?
Right.
It's the world's most ridiculous conference call.
People pointed out that the Apple Watch didn't really necessarily have an audience at first. Like Apple put it out, and then over time it evolved into something that had an audience.
But it still did, being able to answer your calls and get your messages in a way that was
useful.
Like quiet, and you wouldn't know, and other people wouldn't know, which I think Lisa mentioned. It's that you could end up doing that. If I was in a meeting and I ended up getting a message of someone's going to be late or there's an emergency, I knew that without having to disrupt anything. And so that allowed our communication with people to be less disruptive. And I think that was a huge benefit that the watch brought, is that it was like your mini phone to be able to keep you hooked up. And it was not this huge honking phone that everyone knows that you're taking a look at and being rude.
Yeah. Ambient contextual computing. The other thing that I thought was really interesting about the watch is it had multiple different constituencies, because I knew a lot of people who are metrics driven with fitness, and the watch is great for that. We all have read or heard stories of people who were alerted to health issues because their heart rate spiked suddenly, or the watch beeped an indicator. So you've got a health conscious audience.
You're never going to see an ad for Vision Pro that said, I was dying, but the Vision Pro saved my life. That's not gonna. In fact, here's a picture of somebody who probably the Vision Pro risked their life. She's driving a Cybertruck in autonomous mode while using the Vision Pro.
Thanks, I hate it.
Yeah, this is. By the way, you know who the Vision Pro is good for? YouTubers. Marquez Brownlee in less than a day had 4.2 million views on his Vision Pro review. People on YouTube are getting a lot of, and Casey Neistat, same thing, are getting a lot of mileage out of it. Well, let me ask, though, real quickly, Georgia, as a therapist, you know, we talk a lot about a mental health crisis, especially for teenage girls, for young people. You know, the Senate this week tried to blame Facebook and Snapchat and TikTok for that. You know, the one thing I think they're not far off, though, is I don't blame those platforms, but the fact that I see a lot of people, not just young women, but everybody staring at their phone all the time seems really problematic for me in the long term for psychology. And I think this is even worse. Am I off base here? Is that cause for concern?
I think that it is cause for concern. I think that our ability to read other people and engage with other people is by practicing, right? Being able to read micro expressions, the amount of how good we are at interpreting other people's behavior and how they feel is going down because we're not practicing the same amount of time. Because if you're staring at an interface, you're not getting that amount of micro expressions. And interestingly enough, if you're looking at someone else's avatar, you're not getting them at all, right? It's missing out on all those micro expressions that are feeding us information that is not given usually. And so we're actually getting much worse at being able to read people's interaction, and anxiety levels and depression goes up the longer that we spend on social media, not because we're looking at a phone and not looking at people, but one, interactions that are positive with people causes us a lot of dopamine, which makes us feel safe and good if they're positive interactions, of course, and good people. But we're missing that because most of what's on social media is fake and airbrushed, and we only share the amazing things about it. So the good part is that I don't think that the Vision Pro is going to be that popular. So I don't see teenage girls running around wearing it. Why? Because they care about, and this is wrong, but they care about how they look, and it looks, like I don't look the coolest when I'm wearing any of my headsets. I have to be honest about that. Like, I'm not like, in
That's
the minority.
That's why you do it alone in your home.
Right.
I mean, you don't do it
where no one's drawn, where no one sees you.
Yeah, where no one would know. Because if I was mowing my lawn, which not saying that I do, but if I was mowing my lawn and wearing it, like, everyone would be like, this is ridiculous.
Joanna Stern, listening to your interests, actually wore it to cook. And again, Apple tells you not to do this, but there is a recipe program, and she was able to, for instance, chop onions without crying. There's one use right there, Lisa.
That's fine. But I can do that for $10. I
you can
ski goggles would do it. Yeah.
All you have to do is cut the onions in half, place them cut side down on the measuring on your cutting board for a minute.
Here's another one I liked. Look, she's putting the timer. Watch this. She's putting the timer over the thing that it's timing. So she knows what her timer's, but this seems like a lot of money to pay for that convenience and a lot of inconvenience on top. And boy, I sure wouldn't want to be doing this.
I just like was it perfect? No.
Yeah. Well,
why would I pay $3,500 for it?
Yeah. Exactly. Part of my issue with a lot of this is, by the way, for credit, Joanna Stern in the Wall Street Journal doing her review of Vision Pro, which I'm sure also got millions and millions of views in the first 24 hours. And there's a lot of interest.
How much is
a
personal chef? Just asking.
Yeah, less than
$500 an hour. I've looked
there you
into
go.
it.
So you get a couple of meals anyway. It's a really interesting question. I mean, there is a legitimate question to be asked, and I think you make a good point, Wesley. Maybe they should have just offered this, even just for developers, and said this like Google did with Google Glass. This is a developer edition. They have sold 200,000 on their way to. It's believed they can make 800,000 a year. That's Sony's limitation. They make the screens, so they're gonna lose money on it, I'm sure, but they're gonna make billions of dollars in revenue anyway. One of my guesses. I've heard a number of theories. Jason Snell of sixcolors.com and MacBreak Weekly says that Apple's got to have a successor to the iPhone. That's why they work on the Apple Car. That's why they're working on this. And you don't know where this is going to go until you release it to the public at great expense and put it out there and let the public and developers play with it. And that may be a 10-year process on the way to something you want, Lisa, which is spectacles that are just normal glasses, but that would give you that information that you were asking for at a convenient time without isolating you from the world, unless you wanted to be, et cetera. But that technology doesn't exist.
Computing.
Yeah, but that doesn't exist yet.
So one of the things I think Microsoft did right was with the HoloLens, they reached out and partnered with companies and organizations to build use cases that were really highly specific, but had demonstrable value. For example, they teamed up with Lowe's to put together virtual showrooms and walk you through the experience of remodeling and selecting different finishes for your kitchen and playing with different layouts and things like that. And this is the case study I love to share with people is they teamed up with NASA and ran through space station repair drills to demonstrate the value of augmented reality and instructional content when you're restrained by geographical limitations or expertise limitations, because as we all know with space flight and space missions, typically you have to have a lot of people who know a lot about a whole lot of things, because it's not like you can just have somebody take an Uber and zip up to fix the plumbing on the space station. But with something like augmented reality, you could feasibly have somebody who's a mission specialist in one area, but still able to pinch hit with somebody talking them through a repair, on the other end. It was smart because when they did that with the HoloLens, they were demonstrating really specific use cases where this is where you want augmented reality, where you can play with your environment, or this is where you want real-time assistive augmented information while you're working on something. So somebody can see what you're looking at and they can walk you through the repair. Apple's rollout kind of mystifies me, because it's basically, we gave this headset to lots of people who will write a lot of words about it, and we have a lot of YouTube clips. But
by the way, how did that work out for Microsoft? How is that HoloLens thing working out?
Well,
I think they're getting out of
trying
that
to go
business.
for volume. Yeah. They were looking for volume. That was one of their issues, is that they were trying to find big pockets to take chunks of them all at once.
So that's the other theory that I think is a reasonable theory, which is that Tim Cook had spent so much money on this. And remember that to do this, you have to start about 8 years ago. 8 years ago, it was reasonable to look at Meta and say, "Oh, look what they're doing with the Oculus Rift, which they'd purchased. Look at Microsoft. Oh, look what they're doing with the HoloLens," and say, this is the next frontier in computing, or at least has a good chance of being it. We should start spending money on this, which they did. Apple, we don't know how much, but I'm going to guess they're in many tens of billions of dollars in on this. Tim Cook, who has not had a product under his own name, this would be the first. I think. Is it ego, or is it just he felt like we put a lot of money into this and we won't know if it's the next big thing until we release it? I'm going to say, though, that there's going to be a clock ticking, because the board of directors and the stakeholders, the shareholders, are at some point going to say, well, how much more money can we lose on this thing? I
think it's obvious that their secrecy has caused their issue, because they couldn't dog food this internally.
They're dog fooding it now. And we're the dog. We're the dogs.
But during the development process, if they had released it to different areas of their own company to help figure out what use cases makes sense, they would have had a bigger sample size to say, like, we design processors. It'd be great if we could explode the processors. If we get one back from the fab and there was a problem, we can have a visualization, turn it around, and do some collaboration about it. And then once you start doing that, then you're able to say, okay, well, we're really missing this feature of like a laser pointer, so that everyone could see how we're all talking about the same thing, even though we can all see it. Those are things that, as you dog food it, you got to figure out who has $35K to spend on something like this, and then what kind of problems do they need to solve. And doing this internally, I mean, come on, they get paid. People who work at Apple get paid fairly well. So this would have been a really good dog food program if they were able to do it.
Apple will sell every one they can make.
How many will get returned?
Oh, that's an interesting question. You do have, and then there is a 2-week.
How are they collecting feedback?
That's an interesting question. We will never know.
Are they going to buy upgrades?
Yeah.
Are they? Because this, I also keep thinking of the Palm Pilot, which was
was a hit.
very. It was, but is anyone buying Palm Pilots now? It got superseded by tech that said, hey, not only do you have a handheld device that you can play games on and take notes on and have little reminders and a calendar, it also takes photos and it also calls people, and it's a joy to use. So what I'm wondering with VR in general is if this is going to be another one of those technological dead ends where they've identified some of the benefits and use cases. And real talk, over the course of this conversation, Georgia Dow has done more to persuade me of the value of VR than anything else I've ever heard. This might be one of those technological dead ends where it's about 75% of the way there, and then somebody somewhere is going to come along and it will be the ubiquitous contextual augmented experience where everyone's like, oh, this is why it works. Oh, I don't look like a complete dork when I put this on.
Meta's.
Oh, it's, yeah.
Have you used Meta's Ray-Bans? Because that's kind of what Meta's Ray-Bans are doing.
I have not had the pleasure yet, but as a longtime Ray-Bans wearer,
Mike Elgin
I
was
like
a
that
big,
part.
almost, he got me hovering my finger over the buy button. So they have very good speakers in the temples. They have decent battery life. They're standalone. They're not connected to a battery on your hip. They have a camera. They have AI built into it, so you can query it, just as you explained. They also have a camera that can take a picture of something, and this they recently added. The AI will then tell you Google Lens style what it is. I think that they're actually closer to what you're talking about than Apple
I
is.
love that when you're hiking, because you can be like, what is that plant?
Yeah, I do that a lot with my phone, actually.
Yeah, no,
Georgia,
I love
if there were a great game, so we're going to have, in our review of this, Micah Sargent's reviewing it, he's going to show you this, but he was telling me about this. I haven't seen it yet. But Angry Birds on this is, Fruit Ninja on this is pretty amazing. So it is immersive. It's VR. You're doing hand slashes. So you're not using the kind of tiny gestures that the rest of the Vision Pro requires, but you're doing hand slashes. You can also put your palm out and do ninja stars like this. He described the fact that there's a pig that you can feed and play with, and the pig will jump up on surfaces in your house because it's got very good surface recognition. So the pig will jump up on your table. You can feed it. You can play fetch with it. You can throw a stick and it'll go and get it. And so that's, by the way, a VR game. That is an immersive game. What if it were something like that, a game that you really wanted to play? Would that convince you, Georgia?
I think that would be a benefit, but probably it's not going to be better than the systems that are already there. And so, I think that's cute. If you already have it, you're like, okay, I'll play this cute little, pocket game where I'm getting at least a little bit of exercise, but it's not really pushed as to being exercise. And so when I usually play pocket games, I just want to decompress. Like I want to calm down and relax.
Right.
I don't want to be sitting up and doing stuff. When I play VR, it's kind of exhausting. And so I'm like, you have to be kind of up for it to be able to like fight out a zombie horde. You're exhausted by the end of it.
Incidentally,
really
that's an important point you're making. This is not something, this is exhausting. This is something that's draining on your mental and visual resources and emotion.
Absolutely.
And so it's not something you want to wear all day, every day.
No. And it's not just that it's heavy. And so it's not great for your neck because they are quite heavy. And this one's made of metal and glass. So it's quite heavy. But also like that emotional, you're having to process all of this, right? And so you're doing a lot of processing power. So it's emotionally also relatively draining to be able to be in VR, even when it's a really wonderful, pleasant experience. And so because of that, like my worry is every time that someone puts out a failed VR project, like my fear is always like, they're going to kill off VR. Like people are going to be like, this doesn't work. I don't get it. There's no real use case for it. And so like I blame a certain amount Meta. I'm sorry. I'm going to call it as I am. I blame them for like throwing out this system that looked so horrible. Like it was just, it's not a professional setting. You and your little tiny app, you didn't look cool, doesn't look good, and it's not professional. And this one, it's so real, but not real enough that it's actually creepy. You get that creepy effect when the avatar, like they look pretty good. It looks like you-ish, but like your creepy doppelganger that's going to kill you in the middle of the night. Like it's not that good. And so because of that, it bothers me. Like if they had a great game though, that was an actual game, not really just a pocket game, because pocket games I played are chill, not to get exercise.
Yeah.
But I still 300, like it has to be a really killer game for $3,500. Like no one's going to be buying it for Fruit Ninja.
And I think, point out that it might not be able to play those AAA titles because I don't know if it has enough horsepower to do that. Battery life is going to be a concern. So I think more and more, this looks like, Wesley, you're right. This was a product that Apple probably could have released as a developer product or as a specialty product and let it grow organically. At what point does this become something you want?
If I was able to bring in like that little pig that you mentioned that could jump on tables, if it was a virtual assistant and knew what I was looking at, summarize the spreadsheet, read this email for me, reply to this email.
AI. It's an AI tool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Just a real personal assistant that not only is able to give me advice, but also knows the context and where I could give direction and then get a response that's in context as well. Yeah. So that I would pay $3,500 for that.
Yeah.
So it can't be Siri is what you're saying, because she does not do any of those things.
Well, the rumors are that Apple at WWDC in June will announce iOS 18 and a bunch of AI initiatives. Apple and Tim Cook in the quarterly results call this week said, I can't talk about it, but later this year we're going to really make some big AI announcements. I think it's very possible Apple is internally doing something that's power. It's not that hard, frankly. And the technologies are well known. They're not secret to make a smart LLM that it maybe could be Siri or something subsequent to Siri. I don't know. I mean, look, somebody's saying in the Discord, and they're not wrong, that this is a product. He said, Denmo says, folks are so negative about this. If it's not right for you, no one's forcing your hand. Those with use cases will buy it, as it is today. And we're not saying that. I guess what we're trying to do is understand what's the point of it.
Yeah, exactly. You might just try it and say, oh, wow, it doesn't actually work. The issue is not that, but you don't say who it's for. That's what I was going back to. Yeah. If you don't know it's for you, then you'll just buy it because it's advertised to the general audience. Like it's going to be useful for everyone.
That's who's buying it. That
is the major problem.
Yeah. I don't want to be this Casey Neistat guy going into a store wearing it. He's playing Encounter Dinosaurs in a store. People are staring at him like he's a nitwit.
It's bad enough when people are doing TikTok video, when people are filming their little TikToks or doing their social media stuff.
Influencers
when
in the
you're
wild.
Out and about.
Oh my God. They're everywhere.
VR influencers would be even worse. And
ugh. Yeah. All right. Well, we have to talk about it because Apple's making a lot of noise about it, and you're seeing a lot of attention paid to it. And I guess the thing to ask is this a device that we're all going to want someday, and what is it going to need to get there, and what is Apple thinking with this? And honestly, I'm of the opinion that Apple's done an amazing piece of work. I mean, this is incredible, and I am very doubtful and skeptical about the idea of wearing a head-worn computer at any time, unless it's a lot lighter and a lot less obtrusive. And I just don't see strapping a computer to your face as being something most people will ever want to do. I don't know what you could come up with that would make people want to do this. By the way, here's Joanna Stern posted, there's a real uncanny valley effect to the avatar that you create for use in FaceTime. And we'll see this on Tuesday because half of our panel will be joining us wearing these weird avatars. She asked others to post theirs, and they are uniformly kind of scary. That one's really scary, but that's just
it's like rest in peace.
Yeah,
the pictures from like the 1900s when
they also look sad.
If you put them in black and white, that would be amazing.
They all look so sad. Like
it could be
soap opera mode.
Yeah.
It's like
one of those guys looked like he looked like he was about to go throw the ring into the volcano at the end.
He was the sacrifice.
Frodo.
Yeah.
One of the things one of the things it does that I think hurts it is the only part of your face that's in focus is the front of it. The rest of it fades out completely, and I think it's not flattering.
Oh my gosh, really that's not Rushmore.
Well, this guy obviously is going for that. By the way, look at what he really looks like, and you'll see the problem here. I don't know.
I would be fine if it made me look like, prettier. Oh God.
Yeah, that's a
that
joke,
would be
obviously.
fine if you're going to go for something.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't actually the.
No, actually, Ian Vieira is saying, this is on Twitter. Everybody's kind of looking like this, and that's of course the hand fixed painting in the church where the lady decided to fix it, and
they should have just made a deal with like Animal Crossing and been like, pick the adorable animal avatar.
Well, that's the question. Apple has Memojis. I don't know why they didn't use Memojis. They have that.
Yeah.
These are not good, and I think this is part of the problem Apple's going to face is that it's going to be death by 1,000 cuts. People are going to say, well, this and that, and very few people are going to say, like Casey Neistat, this is the best thing I've ever used in my life. And I think Apple's going to have a problem justifying a continued work on this in the long run. So maybe they should. I think, Wesley, you nailed it. They should not have released this as a something for the general population. This should have been a developer.
Or if they even said that this was the beta and like, let's go through, see what you can do with it, see what you like. let's
People
give
would have
feedback.
loved that because they would have loved to feel like they're part of shaping the product, and it would have also rewarded the Apple fandom people still have.
Well, that's kind of what's happening,
people
right?
Love branding.
Yeah, I mean that's what's happening.
Question is it the Oscars or the Grammys? Grammys are
The
tomorrow.
Grammys are tonight.
I wonder if it's going to be in a swag bag somewhere, and they're going to start getting celebrities.
That's a pretty nice swag bag.
But it's also
that's a good point, Wesley.
So are they trying to? They could have made this a status symbol.
They did that with the watch
that way too.
By the way, it
they
failed
did with the watch.
Remember, they
But
had a
just to say,
$25,000
this is
solid
only for
gold
people
watch
who
that
make-
everybody got in their goodie
A
bag.
tie-in with Apple TV Plus and Apple Music would be there
That's
you go. There's
it.
your, there's your
That's a
product
smart
stack.
one.
Well,
that's a smart
Next
one.
Sunday at this time, we will be watching the Super Bowl. Super Bowl halftime show is brought to you by Apple. And I expect this is where we're going to see Apple's answer to your question, Wesley, and all of our questions. This is where Apple gets the biggest stage in the world to say, this is what we think the Vision Pro is and what we think, why we think you should buy it. So
you
far,
realize if Taylor Swift is wearing one, it's all over.
Yeah,
like,
right.
if all they have to do is do a shot of Taylor Swift on.
Can
Or
you
if you
imagine?
could
with one.
watch it on the Vision Pro and you could actually like play ball with your favorite
Well, they're going to do that.
teammates.
The NBA has released
So
an
that
app
would be great.
that a number of people are really crazy about. Brian Tong talked about it on his review of it, where you can watch 4 games at once and see the stats and see Twitter. And, if you're really
So it's like
ADD,
NFL Red Zone
Yeah.
and just,
Yeah,
oh
you
my
know.
But I
God.
would want to
it's-
be able to
it's
throw
big.
a football with someone. Like I want more than
Well, you
what
could
I
do that with the
from-
Meta Quest. You could do that with the Quest.
No, but this is what
I know,
Apple
yeah.
should do, so that you can be with your favorite people, and they could be like giving you tips on like how to have the perfect spin.
So, like, one of the reasons Twitter is still holding on and still has an effective mindshare is it's still a really great place to go to have a communal sports experience. Like, this is, I know people who are like, I would set that app on fire and throw it into the sea if I could, but all of my friends who follow the same sports, I follow are on it. It gives you if you could use this headset to do what you just described, where you've got a Twitter stream going, you can chat with your friends while you're watching your four NFL games and maybe running your fantasy football league in real time. It solves that social impulse issue for the user and the dopamine hits and the entertainment and things like that, as opposed to I have a phone, I have a TV that's streaming something at the same time. That like you'll be condensing the multi-screen experience back down to one. So maybe that's a use case where, oh look, Apple has given us a new vector for bread and circuses. I don't know.
What if this replaced the Surface tablets on the sideline? And the coaches had these on. They could do the replays. They can see.
Brilliant.
They can do analysis. They can see the stats up there real time.
Because what if you had the 3D modeling where you'd have to really blanket the stadium with drone cameras so you could get it from every angle?
They could. They do that already, right?
Jesus Christ, the processing
USFL did
power
that
and the
last year,
connectivity. Wow, Cisco.
But I
hope
think
somebody from Cisco listens to this and is on the phone right now screaming, let's get the stadium contracts. Let's do it. Like, it'd be
drones
amazing.
everywhere. I think you nailed it.
The network
I bet you there's
connectivity.
5 full-time, dedicated, top-level PR professionals hammering Taylor Swift's people. They're bombarding her with Vision Pros, begging her to wear one on Sunday in the box. When
And that
she's
check
watching.
has a blank space.
Yeah, it has a blank space.
And they'll write
better
your
because she
name.
doesn't need the money, so it better.
Yeah, but if somebody comes to you and says, I will
Wesley
give
just
you...
said a Taylor Swift song there, too. So
If somebody says, I will give you $500 million to wear the Vision Pro in the box for 2 minutes,
yeah,
you're going to take that. I don't care how rich you are, right? Right?
This is how you get to be the billionaire,
I
man.
assume-
Sunday, let's watch. We'll watch for it. I think that's an interesting prediction. She's going to have nerves of steel not to do that. She's going to have to be, like, really tough. That'll be
If
interesting.
they didn't think of it, they should have.
Oh,
Yeah.
my God, I'm sure they have. But in a way, Taylor Swift is probably regretting this relationship with Travis Kelce, the KC superstar football player. It's a beautiful thing. In fact, when the Chiefs won their championship game and she came out on the field and they kissed, it was beautiful. It was so sweet. But the attention and the energy being spent on this and on all, I mean, it must be very difficult. Maybe she's used to it. Maybe Travis is used to it. I don't know. I feel bad for those star-crossed young lovers, those sweethearts. That's when you want to wear the headset, right? All right, let's take a break. We're going to come back. We're done. We had to do it. We had to talk about it. And I think it's an interesting conversation. It's not often you get a company that's worth nearly $3 trillion launching a completely new product in a new category for them and attempting to advance a category that has been somewhat laggard and really put all their might behind it. We don't see that very often. So it's from a business point of view, at least, certainly from a technology point of view, it's a very interesting story. And I want to know how it's going to end. I could tell you one thing. It ain't going to end with me wearing one. That's for sure.
Once you lose Christina Warren.
Sure?
Yeah. Do you think Christina's going to get it?
No, she's not.
Yeah, she's not.
And that's the point. If you can't convince her to buy something she doesn't need,
no, you're
there's
right.
a huge problem.
They used to say that about me. All right. I love this panel. Wesley Faulkner, it's great to have you back. We missed you, dude. Nice to have you. His new podcast,
great to be here.
The Radical Respect Podcast at radicalrespectbook.com, because it's also a book coming out in May. Also, Lisa Schmeiser, good to have you, editor-in-chief of No Jitter. What's No Jitter?
It's an old school telecom term. It refers to the goal that folks who basically wired America for telecom, they had the goal of making sure data got from point A to point B, and you could hear a perfect signal, and there was no jitter and no skips and no dropping. And we've kept it as the scope of our site has since expanded to unified communications and collaboration, and basically all of the technological tools that allow people to connect and exchange information.
Oh, this is great. Look at this, editor-in-chief. It's great to have you. And my personal internet psychologist, Georgia Dow. She's keeping an eye on me. YouTube.com/Georgia Dow. I also had you on because you are the VR princess. And I was very curious. I thought maybe you would have run out and bought one, but no, I guess not. You're right. If Christina Warren and Georgia Dow don't buy one, that's not good for Apple. We'll have more in just a bit. Thank you for being here, all three of you. Our episode this week brought to you by Hims. Brand new sponsor. Welcome, Hims. Hims, Hims, is changing men's healthcare by providing convenient access to science-based real treatments for erectile dysfunction, hair loss, weight loss, and more. Hims is 100% online. You can get a new routine for improving your overall health faster from your computer. They have an array of high-quality options. They got pills or chews for ED. They've got serums, sprays, or oral options for hair loss. The medication, if prescribed, ships directly to you for free and in discreet packaging. And you get one low price for your treatments. That includes the online visits, the ongoing shipments, the provider messaging, and no insurance necessary. Manage your plan on the Hims app. Learn more about your conditions and how to treat them from leading medical experts. Start your free online visit today. Hims.com/twit. That's HIMS.com/TWIT for your personalized treatment options. Hims.com/twit. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if it's appropriate. Restrictions apply. See hims.com/twit for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. Hims.com/twit. We thank him so much for supporting This Week in Tech. Oh boy. So many things, other things going on in the world we can talk about. The Senate Judiciary Committee heard from TikTok, Facebook. In fact, Mark Zuckerberg had this just a humiliating experience. Discord, Linda Yaccarino, CEO of X, all testified on Wednesday about KOSA, the Kids Online Safety Bill, which is a reprehensible, horrible bill. That's my personal opinion. Introduced to Congress in a completely cross the aisle. Richard Blumenthal, Democrat of Connecticut, and Marsha Blackburn, Republican of Tennessee. KOSA requires digital platforms to take, quote, reasonable measures, that being a very nebulous term, to prevent harms to children, specifically enumerating sexual exploitation, mental health, substance abuse, and suicide as the harms. It would also require companies to enable their strongest privacy and safety settings for kids by default. Seems fair. Provide parents with greater control over their children's account settings. All of you are parents, as am I, so we can ask. I'll ask you about that. And force companies to regularly audit their products for potential risks. It has twice advanced out of committee, has broad support. In fact, it's backed now by nearly half the Senate. The Senate hearing, at the hearing, among other things, Josh Hawley made, it's actually a horrible moment, Mark Zuckerberg stand up, turn around, and apologize to the parents of children who have been harmed, he said, by Facebook. It was the worst kind of political stagecraft. And it didn't solve anything. But what's wrong with COSA? Anybody want to say anything about that?
I would say that the biggest.
I'll go second.
Okay.
Yeah, the most immediate and obvious problem with it is you're going to be cutting off kids from information that could make their lives better. If you're queer, for example, but you're living in a household where that's not something that your parents would have hoped for you or even think is a morally acceptable choice, you would then, if this bill passes, you wouldn't be able to connect with other queer teens online. You wouldn't be able to read anything that helps you realize that no, you're completely normal. This is fine. You'd be deprived of a sense of community. You'd be deprived of information, and that goes for a lot of other types of content that's out there. Because anytime you start restricting information this dramatically, people are going to use it to censor things. And the truth of the matter is you're never going to be able to censor the internet, and you're never going to be able to censor people's access to it. What you really have to do is bring the behaviors and the regulations in-house and deal with it on a, hey, this is what happens when you're on social media, or hey, when you see this, we need to talk about it, or hey, so long as you are here, the presumption of privacy is really small. We're going to be negotiating this back and forth. And when I ask to see your browser history, let's not make a thing of it. It's a bad bill precisely because it's trying to regulate morality and parenting and behavior. And those types of legislation never work out for the better. They just end up harming people.
Wesley? Tell me everything that's wrong with COSA.
Yes.
Well, part of it is a different philosophy about how to raise kids. I think that there is just a different perspective. As a person who grew up with 90s movies and was exposed to so much inappropriate stuff growing up.
And look how you turned out.
I mean, come on. They had RoboCop on lunchboxes. You kids should be watching RoboCop. Come on.
No, you're right. You're right.
There's a vision, kind of what Lisa was saying, is that the world is a huge place. Mm-hmm. And if your job is trying to shut it out, that is an impossible task. But if you then turn your charge as a parent inward so that your kids are able to go into the world with the tools that they need to be able to understand what to do in certain situations, or who to ask questions to, and to feel safe with bringing concerns, or if something is inappropriate that they can talk to you. And that's kind of the world in which there's a different role of parents. If someone says drag show, oh my gosh, how dare you say that to my kid? If that's your reaction, it's more of like, that's the censorship. That is just trying to remove the exposure. But knowing that gay people may exist, and people who dress in drag may exist, and your kid will eventually possibly run into someone who may look differently than they've seen, and being able to prepare for them for that is, I think, where the disconnect happens. I tried to do the latter camp. So if my kid goes to play at their friend's house and then they see a gun, they know not to touch it and not to play with it, because they understand dangers and things that they don't know about, and how it could really be harmful, especially in that sort of danger. So they understand those practical dangers and what kind of repercussions could happen if they decided to do or play with those things. They understand body boundaries. They understand sticking up for themselves and being able to like not do things just because it's cool or someone else says it's cool. And I'm not saying that COSA is overstepping, but I'm saying that if you rely too much on the first camp, where you're just trying to censor the world, then it seems highly appropriate.
You're a good parent. Some of this, Pat, by the way, lets the state's attorneys generals decide what's good parenting and what's not. And especially, this is especially something that Texas and Florida's AGs are very fond of. Let me read to you. Hold on a second. I'm going to read to you something, and then we can continue. Shoshana Weissman will be on the show in a couple of weeks. Has been on the show many times. Works for the right-leaning R Street think tank, rstreet.org. R Street joined 90 human rights organizations, LGBTQ plus, and free market groups in their opposition to COSA for 4 reasons. COSA would result in the collection of more sensitive data of children and, oh, by the way, adults, because you have to prove whether you're an adult or a child that you're of age, which means that information would be handed off to people like, well, to everybody. YouTube, Facebook, and Pornhub. COSA, secondly, and this is kind of, I think, what you were alluding to, Lisa, COSA violates the First Amendment rights of children and adults. Third, COSA's legal mandates are unenforceable, which is an interesting point of view. And fourth, COSA would limit the ability, and this is really what you were saying, for children to access and benefit from the internet. Now, this is not some, left-wing organization. This is R Street. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to give you these points from this.
Yeah. The other thing I'd add is if lawmakers were genuinely concerned about the impact of social media on children in any way, shape, or form, they would have started by setting up regulations to protect the privacy and well-being of children who are props in their influencer parents' videos. You've got tons of parenting of parenting influencers on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok who are always putting their kids on camera, we pranked our kids by taking their Halloween candy. Let's watch the reaction. Or they're basically raising these kids on camera. They're monetizing parenthood. These kids have no protection when it comes to privacy. They're not getting paid for the work that they do for their family. If you really wanted to address these kids, and these kids are exposed to adults where, again, they have no control over this because they've been online since they were babies and before they can consent. If you wanted to address children's well-being, you could start there. I mean, we have the Jackie Coogan laws in place, and we have lots of labor laws in place for child actors and child performers. I don't understand why we haven't done the same for child influencers. Because if you're going to break out this for the children business, start with the content mills that rely on children's unpaid labor and exploiting parasocial relationships with children before you start worrying about what kids themselves are watching. Like, it's amazing that if it's capitalism, it's fine to put the kids online, but heaven forfend, kids themselves should go and look for information.
Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton, talking to TikTok CEO Shou Chu, repeatedly asked about his ties to China. He says, have you ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party? To which...
Isn't he Singaporean?
Yes, that's what Shou said. He said, Senator, I'm Singaporean. No. But Cotton, apparently not even listening, then said, have you been associated or affiliated with the Chinese Communist Party? To which Chu said, no, Senator, again, I'm Singaporean. To then he asked, I mean, it just goes on, and it's purely racist. Well, you look like you're Chinese, buddy. Unbelievable. But what it shows is this is really grandstanding on the part of senators, and they're not listening to what we're saying, to what those 90 organizations are saying, to what R Street's saying, to what EFF is saying. They are hell-bent to pass COSA, and that scares me because, it's not good.
Because
it's not good law.
The ability to misuse and abuse this is great. Yeah. And they just want their moment to be able to have their little tiny, few seconds of humiliating someone to say that they've actually done something when they don't actually really want to do something. Because the first thing, if they really wanted to protect children from the internet, because having the government in your house, like, let's just say it, no one wants the government in their house. But if they say that they're doing this and they humiliate some people so they get their little tiny moment so they can get their bit of fame, then they're happy with that. Because if they really cared, they'd be dealing with media literacy, and that would happen in the school system, and it would happen from kindergarten on, so that children could be aware of what is the internet, what should they do, what shouldn't they do, instead of trying to cut out all the things that they don't want. Because let's be honest, this is kind of driven by, racism, misogyny, trying to be able to control what people think. And it really has nothing to do with protecting people, because your job as parents is not just to protect your children from the world, it is to prepare them for the world that they have to live in. And so to have them have no knowledge of what the internet is, the good and the bad, and how to handle it, and then suddenly when they're adult, they will not have those skills and do something that they shouldn't. And then they're going to have the same issues and problems. But what they're hoping to do is be able to control what people think, what people feel is okay and right. And because there's more mainstream thought that are not as closed-minded as some people would like it to be, they want to kind of close that down.
Yeah.
My
And
daughter's
which
school
children
system
from what?
does. Yeah, which areas?
I was just going to say that the Utah just passed a law eliminating all DEI from schools that are state funded and government programs. And you eliminate, and this is the same, like Attorney General.
Sorry, what is DEI?
Diversity, equity, inclusion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And saying that's diversity is good, equity is good, and inclusion is good.
Yeah.
And so
they've gotten
removing,
rid of, so they're saying inequality is good,
yes,
diversity is bad.
Yes.
That's
And
allowed.
and excluding people is necessary for the social order in America. That is absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I was going to
They're
say my
saying
daughter's
the quiet part out loud.
Yeah,
Exactly.
my daughter's school system does media literacy from kindergarten on, because by the time that my daughter was upper elementary school, she and her friends could discourse pretty knowledgeably on. They would talk about the online tail. That was the way that they were taught, was every time you go online, a little piece of data gets added to your tail. So be very, very careful
Very nice.
how
I
you
like
build
that.
about how you build your tail. And I have a middle schooler, and listening to the middle schoolers talk now about how their peers are using social media and how they see it complicating their lives. And every year they do have media literacy courses where it talks about here's how you assess primary sources and secondary sources. Here's how you check out whether or not a source is legitimate. Here's how your online activities can impact your mental health. We have that. We're also in a school district that does do DEI, and we're in a school district that does social emotional learning. So it seems like this is part of a larger dialogue on larger dialogue on what tools do you want to give your children and for what aim. And this is where I tend to get a little ranty too, because I don't think it's fair to kids across the country who don't get to have these tools.
Yes.
It's better to know how to read and think critically, and how to engage with ideas that confuse you or upset you or challenge you, than it would be to simply pretend that they don't exist.
I'll say something that might get me a lot of backlash, but like people that are not educated and not given tools are easier to control. They're easier to have fear-based thinking, alter their votes and what they do. They're easier to believe whatever might be the biggest, most charismatic or loudest talking head says to you. And they're less likely to be able to rise up and ask for more or demand more and change the way that the system is. And so a lot of more autocratic governments really enjoy being able to control the information that people get and the tools that they have, so that they don't end up causing problems to the system.
It's tempting to say, well, they're very cynical, and this is an attempt to assert political control and essentially on the road to an authoritarian government. But isn't it also possible just to say, well, they're just trying to do the best to protect kids, and then maybe they don't understand
But then
the
they would
consequences?
listen.
Yeah,
But then they would
protect.
listen, right? They would educate, they would listen.
You think they know
would
what
try
they're
to do
doing?
things. Of course they do. Of
No,
course they know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. They're fear-based. They see the way that people are changing. They know that the new generations are highly political, highly educated, much more leaning towards being open-minded, wanting to give power back to the people, more into unions, more dealing with being able to have their own rights, and they will fight for it. And that is terrifying to an old system, right? To the dinosaurs, that is a terrifying change because they know that there is only one way to get those votes. And the newer generations are pretty proactive. They understand the media. They know what they're doing. And
Well,
so
also,
how else do you change that?
It's a good way to get votes to scare people about their kids.
Yes.
And to find a boogeyman, you got to find a boogeyman. The big tech is a
100%.
great boogeyman right now for everybody. It may be just as short-sighted as, well, how do I get elected, or how do I get through my primary in a month, and how do I get elected in a year, than anything else.
And when we are, sorry.
The thing is, though, is a lot of online participation is still tremendously voluntary. No one is making a child go on social media. And at some point, if you're the parent, you shouldn't be relying on either the government or even on other companies to do the parenting for you. It's on you to have the conversations with your kid where you're like, no, I don't care that you're 13. You're not going on Instagram because that whole thing is a factory for creating discontent. Or no, you're not going on TikTok because I don't agree with the data collection policies. And here's why. Or if you do YouTube, we reserve the right to review your viewing history to make sure that you're not, to see if we have to have a discussion with you about what you want to watch. There has to be some of that. And again, if it comes down to harm reduction with children, a really easy way to start with harm reduction for children online would be to go after the industries that are exploiting kids for money, like influencers. Like, start there.
Or you could also maybe do something about gun control, but I don't want to get political on this. So.
Oh, heaven.
Also, keep in mind,
number one
there's
killer
an
of children.
incentive. Is guns. But there's an incentive to make a good sounding bill be really crappy, because if it is, then the people who can say, like, we did something to try to help kids,
right?
The people who read the bill saying we're not voting for that, and then the people who are putting the bill say these people
you don't want children to be safe.
They voted against. Yes, exactly. That's why they make it such a trendy term, because then they can say, well, these people voted against parental rights and parental safety and child safety, so they don't care about kids. And so they make the name really like biting and salacious. But if you read the bill, it's really kind of terrifying and kind of like dystopian. But the thing is that that's the way that it works, right? Is that then they can they care and they'll take whatever power is given to them, right? Which all governments do. And I believe in parental rights. And I believe that you should be able to know what your children are doing, not just on the internet, but in life, and be able to prepare them for that. And so it's not really about that. But the thing is when they use fear mongering to be able to target a populace, or to be able to target something that is a boogeyman that no one really complained about before. When people are afraid, when people are fearing for the thing, and what we care about most is often our progeny, our children, or the people that we care for. What happens to our brain is that the limbic part, our fight or flight, if activated enough, will actually shut down the thinking part of our brain. We will become stupider because we chemically have the thinking part of our brain when we're really scared and bothered by something. That's why they keep on repeating it, right? And they find a scapegoat, is because that's the fastest way that we will give up our rights and freedoms. And we've seen it happen throughout history. It's highly effective. And if we can demonize and dehumanize whatever it is that we're fighting against, then it seems like we're doing the right thing because we're keeping things safe, and we'll just sign on the dotted line. And so it's highly effective.
Well, the truth is, it's a real pain in the backside to actually parent your kids through the internet.
Oh, I believe it. I'm so glad my kids are adults, because I don't know what I would do.
I mean, let me just share a recent. When my daughter was at a slumber party, the person she was having the sleepover with had been like, "Oh, my latest thing are mommy influencers from Utah, God. And I love watching their McMahon shit." And it's very, very different than what these kids are growing up with. And so it's like a shot to the
culture.
Curiosity.
Yeah.
And so these kids were watching all sorts of videos, and it was things like, how are they spending $2,000 a pop at Sephora? And look at the size of their minivan. And so I find out that so again,
This
my
is
daughter
their
and her
version
friends
of National Geographic, right?
well, they're watching this, and the thing is you listen to the pitter patter that goes on in the back, and it's things like, "I'm so glad I have a provider who can, afford," and I'm home with my kids all the time, and this is the way it's supposed to be. The kids are so sick, and
it's propaganda, isn't it? It's direct.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
So what I ended up doing is I was watching a couple of these with her, and I was like, all right, what are you thinking about when you see this? What are you reacting to? And she was chattering about it. And then I got her the book Momfluenced by Sarah Peterson, which is a reported look at mommy influencer culture, like the history, and here's how it got monetized, and here's what drives it, here's what's lucrative, and here's what's not. And then Stephanie McNeil had written a really good book called Swipe Up for More, which is about what it takes to be an influencer, what it's like behind the curtain. And my kid has just dived into both of those because she loves the behind the scenes look. And now when she and her friends, when I'm carpooling them, she and her friends begin to talk about the influencers. And my daughter's like, well, this is what's really going on. And the other kids are like, oh boy, dirt. But my point is, it took work. It took like a couple weeks to bottom out what was so attractive about this, and what are these videos really saying, and how can I get information into your hands and into your brain in a way that you're open to? And people don't always have time for that.
It's a lot of work. You're a particularly active and an informed, well-informed parent, and also willing to do this. I think the bottom line on COSA that I would say people who are listening should pay attention to, and perhaps write your Congress critters about, comes from Evan Greer, the director of Fight for the Future, who says, don't be fooled. This is not a Protect the Children bill. This is a censorship bill. This is about various constituencies in Congress wanting to be able to censor the internet and censor social media. They're trying to fight this fight on many, many fronts, including in front of the Supreme Court. And we're going to hear about that case in June. And don't be fooled. This has nothing to do with children. They use children as a paper tiger because who's going to vote against something to protect children? But really, this is about, we need to be able to censor what's on the internet. And if you are somebody watching this show, I think you probably feel pretty strongly that we don't want government censoring the internet. That is probably a bad idea. Government, not just federal government, but this would give the power to states individually to do the same. And I can only think that it would be very bad for the future of the internet in general. Let's take a little break. More to come. But we want to pause for a moment. Our guests, it's great to have you. Georgia Dow from beautiful Montreal, where Canada has its own child protection laws that are almost equally exciting. We could talk about those someday. Georgia at westmounttherapy.com. From nojitter.com, Lisa Schmeiser and Wesley Faulkner, who I met in Austin at South by many, many years ago. Stacey Higginbotham introduced us. Yep.
I'll be speaking this year.
Are you?
Is awesome. Yeah.
It's
one
coming
of the
up
feature
next
panels.
month. What are you going to talk about?
So this is a feature session from the yes, this is for the radical. This is the radical respect panel. So we'll be talking about that, Kim and I.
Oh, you're going to do a panel. Wonderful. South by coming up next month, right? March 8th through 16th.
Yeah, second week of March.
Yeah. Fun. I miss going to South by. It'll be fun to go.
Well, tickets are still available.
Jack Conte will be the keynote. Death of the Follower and the Future of Creativity on the Web. Of course, he's a creator of Patreon, but he's been on our...
Amy Webb will be there.
Amy Webb was always there. She loves doing her thing there. Jack, of course, was one of the two people in Pamplemousse, and we used to have them on performing, but now he's way too famous, and we can't get them on anymore. Let's take a pause. The pause that refreshes. On we go with the show. Oh, this was a story. Holy cow. If you're worried about deep fakes, sure, you can worry about poor Taylor Swift, but this has a little bit more impact. This from CNN this morning. A finance worker paid out $25 million to fraudsters after having a call with a deep fake CFO. They don't name the multinational firm, but fraudsters duped the worker into attending a video call with what he thought were other members of the staff. He recognized their voices and their faces. All of them were deep fake recreations, according to Hong Kong police. In the multi-person video conference, it turns out everyone he saw was fake. He grew suspicious after he received a message that was purportedly from the company's UK-based chief financial officer. He thought, this is phony. This is a phishing mail. But then he was invited to the video call, saw the CFO, saw his coworkers. He said, well, okay, I guess you need this $25 million, and executed the transfer. Now that's a problem. Now I'm starting to worry about deep fakes. They're getting
movie.
Good. Wow.
It's like Ocean's 14. Oh my God.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
That's a lot of work, but $25 million is a lot of money. It's worth it. So that makes sense.
So, I don't know how you do a deep fake Zoom call. Maybe you guys are all fake. Maybe I'm just imagining this show. I don't know.
That's what's going to happen. You're going to have us and we won't actually be there, and you won't have to worry about getting people. You'll just have a whole bunch of deep fakes, and ChatGPT will be talking about all of the different
and who's
Do you
to
think
say
VR will boost this? Like once we're all in the headsets, you're like, I don't even know who I'm having a meeting with, because we're all like our little
I
digital
created
avatars.
my own perfect little avatar, that they can just steal now.
And who's to say I'm real? I mean, I might be a deep fake. You wouldn't know that. The scam involving the fake CFO was only discovered when the employer later checked with the head office. Next time do that first, okay? The Hong Kong police would not reveal the name or details of the company, so we don't know who it was, but that's a lot of money.
That means that all those people probably have some sort of online presence in order to recreate them virtually, even.
But you only need a minute or two of audio, right? So if you record like the analyst call and get the pictures of the people, I mean, it's amazing what they can do now.
This is also like a stunning lack of process, where they're like, if you can remove $25
you should need
million
another signature at least, shouldn't you?
Maybe possible. Think about it.
There used to be a type of phishing call. You would get a phone call where the goal was to try to get you to say yes on the phone call, so that this way they could use it as verbal assent for later.
Right.
And this honestly seems like it's more of the same.
Yeah. These guys are good at using the modern technology. Amazon was going to buy iRobot, the makers of the Roomba vacuum cleaner. That deal is off, thanks to regulators who basically have put up so many stumbling blocks. Amazon's given up. Now you might say, well, that's all right, because iRobot got a $94 million breakup fee. Apparently not enough. They laid off 350 people, 31% of their workforce. Their stock has tumbled to the lowest level since 2009. Maybe Amazon's breathing a sigh of relief at this point. I don't know. But the deal is off. Some people were worried. I wasn't. That the Roomba makes a map of your home. That's part of its job in order to vacuum. And that map might go off to Amazon where they might use it. I don't know what they would use it for, but anyway, you don't have to worry about that anymore. And now you have to worry about whether your robot vacuum cleaner will be homeless soon. Mm-hmm. Amazon decided not to offer remedies to the regulators whose concerns were that Amazon might demote other robot vacuum cleaners and promote its own products. Amazon said, well, we wouldn't do that, but we're not going to give you any, assurances of that. So anyway,
right.
I don't know.
Because they haven't done that before.
Right. I don't know if that matters. Hey, we got some numbers. Historically, YouTube never reveals much about its operation, but a research firm has done a lot of kind of finicky work to figure out how many videos there are on YouTube. This is a team of researchers at University of Massachusetts and Amherst. It took them a year. They basically kind of created a random number generator that would go through all of the YouTube IDs. Basically, they called it dialing for videos, inspired by the random digit dialing used in polling. It took a sophisticated cluster of powerful computers at the University of Massachusetts months to collect a representative sample. We spent another few months analyzing the videos. We now can say, we believe, that there are a total of, get this, 14 billion videos on YouTube. That's 1.5 for every person on the planet. So some of you are just not working hard enough. Get to work.
I'm doing what I can. I'm doing what I can here.
You're overachieving, aren't you? Actually,
I'm trying. I'm really trying.
I kind of might be responsible for a few videos as well. Videos with 10,000 or more views account for 94% of the site's traffic, but less than 4% of the uploads. Most videos obviously have very few views. Some, about 5%, have no views at all. I have a few of those. So I made some of those. Nearly 3/4.
Yeah, there's also private videos as well.
That's right.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's
right.
true. Good point.
Here's the
I'm wondering if the videos could be a way. You could use YouTube as a storage site of some sort.
People do that.
Yeah,
I do that. Lots of people do that.
Yeah, just for family and.
You make them unlisted, and you can just put stuff there.
Yeah.
It's free. Here's the most important finding, though. Popularity is almost entirely algorithmic. Now, you'll be interested in this, Georgia. We found little correlation between subscribers and views. You know how every YouTuber is saying, you subscribe, hit the bell, do all that.
Hit like and subscribe. Hit like and subscribe. Mm-hmm.
Apparently, according to these researchers, YouTube recommendations and not subscriptions are the primary drivers of traffic on the site.
It definitely is for me.
People follow the recommendation engine. They don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, some of my people will come, but it's such a small percentage of the amount of people that you have subscribed. Subscriber is more like an ego hit for yourself. It feels good to say it to other people. It feels really good. But if I'm doing a video on something that's popular, it's just the algorithm's going to feed my video to more people, and there's more chance that people will see it. Because if you don't click it right away, it's gone, right?
Right.
There's other videos. They're like, oh, they didn't really like that. So
No
I'm in
attention
competition
span.
with
Yeah.
everything else that someone has subscribed to. And so mine might be their third favorite. Well, that means that I might not be shown the next time they click back to their own page.
You
I'm
have videos with more than a million views. And in fact, your most viewed videos are for some reason about a thing called Arcane, which is a game.
No, it's a show that's on a game, League of Legends. It's a video game, but the show is actually really, really good. And even if you've never played League of Legends, it would make zero difference to it. But it's quite good, quite well done.
But what it tells me is that the YouTube algorithm upranked those because it said Arcane.
Yes. Well, and more people clicked it. And if more people click it, then YouTube wants more people.
Self-reinforcing.
Right? So, it's like, how do you survive and do well at YouTube is be popular at YouTube. It's almost like the snake eating the tail.
Right. Well,
they know which advertisers pay the most amount of money. And so you probably want to steer people to the content where their ads are going to be more,
you think YouTube pays
beneficial
attention to that?
towards you in terms of revenue?
Wow.
I would guess so. How many times have you been steered to an ad that has no ad? I mean, a video that has no ad.
Oh, yeah, right. Good point.
The one that has 1 or 2 views. I mean,
but there's the ones where they have the in-video sponsorship too. Those pop up a lot more on our recommendations feeds than the ones that have no sponsorship.
This is interesting because my son, who has 2.5 million followers on TikTok and on Instagram, he's a chef. When he had a sponsor for when Hellman's Mayonnaise sponsored his video, those would get very low views. And I don't think it's because people didn't click them. I think it's because the algorithm didn't promote it. He was, as everybody who wants to succeed at this, carefully watching what the algorithm promoted and tuning his content to the algorithm. Just as Mr. Beast did famously. I mean, that's how Mr. Beast got famous, is he paid a lot of attention to what the algorithm was doing and catered not to the audience, but to the algorithm. I mean, they go hand in hand, obviously. The algorithm is sensitive to what people are watching and people are sensitive to the algorithm. But Henry was very careful. That's why he only makes sandwiches. He says it's the only thing that people want to see is sandwiches. Now, I don't know if that's true, but that's what the algorithm tells him, right? I think that's kind of interesting. Yeah. And then let me ask you this: do you have to have a facial expression a weird expression in the thumbnail? Is that?
Yeah. So here we go to this bloody facial expression, and I'm expressive. I'm an expressive person by nature. But yeah, if you look shocked, crying, freaking out, or angry, you're fighting like this a little tiny square. And if you look like there's like you want to make someone feel or think something that will make them interested and want to click. And some people do it in different ways. But remember, this is like your deal. You're fighting for real estate. You want yours to be punchier than someone else's that's also fighting to be as punchy as possible.
When I see your face on I'm looking at your thumbnails, I want to click stop being afraid. Because that, right, more than how to choose a therapist, I want to click stop being afraid. Yeah. All right, let's do an experiment. I want to get good views on this show. So if you would all just make a horrified expression, do it all at once.
Wait, give us a countdown.
You got to do the whole wide screen now. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. All right, we have our show thumbnail. Let's just see. Oh, wait a minute. I got to put on my Vision Pros. All right, hold on. Now let's do it.
Wait. No. Okay.
Okay, I think that's going to work. We'll see. We'll compare that to previous episodes.
We'll find out. Yeah, but you have to have a clicky set of words too, like this
shocking.
Leo terrified the
okay,
whole
Benito.
Set of,
clicky weird words, please.
Kevin?
Yeah, has to.
Kevin's got to do that. Our editor Kevin's going to come up with that. He does the thumbnails. Give us an example. It does
make a difference.
Psychologist, give us an example.
We want things that are. Yeah.
How about this? There's a serial killer in your basement, but we know how to get rid of him.
Yeah. You know what? Fear-based things of how to protect yourself, secret knowledge, right? The best tricks that no one knows.
Who
right?
killed JFK? Find out.
Right, on Twitter.
It finally happened. Leo offended everyone on the panel.
That's true. There we go.
There you go. That's a good one. What did Leo say?
That's everyone.
If you would all hang up.
Statement Leo has ever said.
Perfect. What did Leo say that made everybody hang up?
Yeah. Have you ever offended someone, Leo, so much they hung up?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Are you kidding? Oh, yeah.
Like one of the hosts?
Oh, I'm sure I have.
Oh, I want to know.
Can you tell the story?
You see, now I want to know. I want to know. The biggest beef, the biggest beefs on TWiT. Now I'm interested.
Mm-hmm. I've hung up on. So the most famous one was when it was years ago with Mike Arrington, who at the time was TechCrunch, and he offended me mightily for nothing, and I hung up on him.
Did you?
Yeah.
On air?
Yeah. Well, I stopped the show. I said, "That's it. We're not doing this show anymore." I actually canceled the show on the air.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. That's impressive. See, that would be a show to have the top 5 moments.
That I should have. This is pre-YouTube, I think. I should have.
Yeah.
I think it's on YouTube right now, actually.
Unreleased episode from the archives.
I think actually. Yeah. Wait a minute. Let me see. Can we get taken down for me showing a video from our own show?
Well, if you take it down yourself, yeah.
You're going to copyright yourself?
Well, Mike Arrington might ask me to take it down. This was actually.
Well, let's put it up anyways.
One show Mike Arrington requested to be removed.
This is.
Mike Arrington doesn't want you to see this.
Here.
Yes, now I want to see it.
Now we're going to air it. Yeah. This was we were at the time simulcasting the Gilmore Gang with Steve Gilmore. That's Kevin Marks and Mike Arrington in a T-shirt. See if you get my audio.
I have a pre. I don't. Are you happy with it?
Love it. Okay, so this was so long ago. I was reviewing the Palm Pre phone. Okay.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
And I said, you heard me say, I love it.
Why?
It's quite impressive. Well, I thought that maybe.
Hold on. Did you pay for the pre? Let's get the disclosures out of the way right away.
This is a 1-week review unit. I couldn't get one, and unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to get. I was going to go out and get one this afternoon.
Okay, so you got a free pre. You're one of the very few people that got a free review.
Not at all. I think there are quite a few reviewers here.
Scoble has one too.
Mike, that's BS, and I'm really pissed off that you would imply that in some way that this free, quote, free pre that I send back in 7 days would in any way predispose me. Screw you.
What are you going to do about it?
Mike, you are such a troll. Screw you. I'm not kidding.
I'm not watching the video.
And then I can't even. It's too painful.
You.
I hung up on him. I hung up on them. I canceled the show. We never did it again.
You can't show it because it brings you back some emotional trauma from going through it.
It's painful. Help me,
there's your thumbnail
Georgia.
for this episode. Georgia traumatizes Leo, and then we all just go.
I re-traumatized him. Actually, he was already traumatized the first time.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Oh wow.
You know that's going to shoot up in views now. You have to put that up on your own channel because it's going to shoot up in views. Everyone now is going to want to see because you didn't show it. So now they're going to go to the...
It's perfect because Hims is a sponsor and you say screw you. So it sounds like it's a great tie-in.
Mike, do you have ED? Because, all right, I honestly, I kind of think that this is a problem because it incents people. This is why we're going to see all these weird Vision Pro videos of people walking off cliffs and stuff. It incents people to get outrageous in order to get views on YouTube. And I think it's a perverse incentive, right? I think it's a bad thing, personally. Yeah.
No, it absolutely pushes people to be more and more extreme and do more and more things because what is our barrier, our mainstay, our average of what is normal or entertaining grows higher and higher every time because we see so much. Someone just walking into a wall is no longer that entertaining, right? Like I want them to walk into the wall, fall down, and a goat pees on them. That's like, now I'm entertained.
Wait a minute.
But
Can we get that goat out we have in the back room there?
I want the wall to fall down.
Greatest video of all time.
Yeah.
That's an actual video?
Yeah, there's all kinds of... Yeah.
No, okay.
Goat acronym.
I wouldn't know. I don't know.
You'll see it. They're there.
The screaming goats. I like the screaming goats. Those are good. That was a good video.
Well, one of my favorite weird genre, I wouldn't call it a weird genre on YouTube, but one of the things that I found surprisingly riveting was Norway's slow television, where they would have 9-hour-long videos of a train just winding its way up the Norwegian border.
I've been on that train, by the way. That's the most boring trip in history. It's so long. It goes.
See, some of the scenery looks amazing, and then some of it
it's very beautiful. But it just my wife will never let me forgive me for it. We were on the west coast of Norway in Kristiansand for a photography conference, and the organizer said you could fly back to Oslo and go home, or you could take the train from Kristiansand to
Tromsø, I think.
Oh no! What we did is we took the Hurtigruten, which is a boat that goes in all the fjords all the way down to Bergen, and then Bergen to Oslo, which was an all-day. And I thought it was great, but I was the only one. Lisa said we could have been in Oslo yesterday having a great time instead. But look, honey, that's where the planet Thoth was filmed. The ice planet out there, right there. She wasn't impressed.
Yeah. Bergen is where the Trolls movie was made, right?
Bergen's beautiful. I love Bergen. I really do. It's quite beautiful. Yeah. And a very nice train station. Elon Musk has announced that the first human has received the Neuralink brain chip.
Speaking of trolls.
Well, his companies have a history of always putting the safety culture first. I don't think anything can be wrong.
Elon did not say anything about... Now, they got FDA approval some months ago. The theory was that this chip would be put into somebody who had severe disabilities. They couldn't move or they couldn't see, or, and that they volunteer for it in hopes of regaining some functionality. Now, Elon's not saying who it was. All he says is that the experimental surgery went well and the patient is recovering well. Of course, Neuralink has been accused of animal cruelty. They've killed hundreds of apes or chimpanzees in order to do this research. The other thing that scared me a little bit, I did not volunteer for this, is that you get a surgeon... the first thing that happens, a human surgeon cuts a small hole in your skull, and then, and this is what scares me, a 7-foot-tall robot named R1 then does the ultra-delicate procedure of suturing the electrified wires from the implant directly into your brain.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. But on the other hand, if it weren't Elon, I would say this is great because this could someday transform somebody's life, right? This could be a huge, if you're a quadriplegic, this could be huge.
Go for it, Jordan.
Sure.
Sorry.
The issue with it is that there's a lack of transparency, right? Like what they share about their entire process is really, really minimal. And it is an actual intra-brain, like the electrodes are going into your brain, where a lot of the other types of neural links are just on top, right? They're just reading off the electrical impulses that they can. Are they less effective? Yes, would be potentially less effective at the moment where the technology is now. But with it being Elon Musk, with it being that the trial is not registered at the governmental clinicaltrials.gov. And so you're like, why? Why would that be? If they have FDA approval and they've gone through the necessary and proper procedures, are they not registered? Like, where is this being done? Is this being done somewhere where, the U.S. government would not be that thrilled about it happening?
Yeah.
And they have not given much feedback on the process, on what's happening. And there's a lot of electrodes, which, again, if it wasn't Elon Musk, it would be great. But like 1,000 electrodes are inside of your brain at different parts. It's quite an invasive procedure. And what do the effects of these electrodes have? Do they erode? What are they doing with it? It could be absolutely amazing for people that are paraplegic or disabled or, not being able to, converse or even talk to people. But yeah, it's whenever there's a lack of transparency, there's a reason why they don't want to share the information.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out that even if this was perfect, it worked flawlessly and it does exactly what they say it does. There's been a history of these types of implants that go inside of a person. That means that you're not just making sure it works. You're not making sure that it's doing the thing it says, but you're making sure that it happens, that it works flawlessly, or if it's not flawless, that you're able to fix it for the life of the person that has this in their body. And they have to be responsible. So it could be a decade, 2 decades, 3 decades from now. Are they still going to be able to service it? Are they still going to be able to find replacement parts for it? Are they going to have the expertise? Or is it like all the other Elon Musk companies where they say that's old technology, we're going to move on to the next thing, and then maybe not maintain that same type of level of direction or refinement? Are they still going to be able to maintain the level of degradation that's naturally going to happen when you have anything in a human body for the life of a person? And that's the important thing. Even if this works, are they building in a plan to make sure that it's working for the rest of the life of the person who has it in their body?
I'm not sure I want the move fast and break things culture anywhere near my human brain.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, it just reminds me of the Black Mirror episode where, the implant gets updated and they end up changing what you get to see and how you experience things.
Our terms of service have changed. Please read
given
the following.
How Tesla drivers have complained about inconvenient software updates and the driving experience changing when the software gets pushed out without their notification, consent, permission. And given the managerial culture around Elon Musk's companies, do you really want something in your brain where the company is going to push out a firmware update without notice, consent, or troubleshooting?
Well, ironically, Tesla has just been ordered to recall almost every vehicle it's ever sold because the silliest little thing, the warning lights, for the blinkers, there's apparently the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has a rule for the size of the warning lights. They have to be big enough that you can readily see it immediately. And he made them too small. So NHTSA has said you gotta, they could fix it with an over-the-air software update. You don't have to go back to the service center. But still, that's the kind of slapdash, like every other car manufacturer in the world reads the rules and says, okay, it has to be so big, make it that big. You could totally see Elon saying, well, you don't have to make it that big, and not doing it. And so that kind of slapdash attention to detail would make me a little nervous.
You may not want that in your brain.
Yeah, I'm just saying. All right, let's see. Let's take a little pause that refreshes. You're watching our fabulous This Week in Tech episode with Georgia Dow and Lisa Schmeiser and the wonderful Wesley Faulkner. Just a little plug at this point, I think, for our listeners and viewers who are not yet a member of Club TWiT. That means you, because you're seeing this. If you join Club TWiT, I can't beg you anymore to join Club TWiT because you're already in Club TWiT. We cut that part out. We cut the ads out. You get all the ads taken out. You also get access to the Club TWiT Discord and the Club TWiT feed, where we have lots of stuff that we don't put out in public, including Home Theater Geeks with Scott Wilkinson, Hands on Macintosh, Hands on Windows, the iOS Today Show with Rosemary Orchard and Micah Sargent. We have fun events. We've got a big event coming up Thursday. Stacey Higginbotham stops by for Stacey's Book Club. That's always fun. I'll be hosting that with Stacey. The book this week is The Water Knife by Paolo Bacigalupi, which is kind of a noir science fiction story in the near future when water is scarce, and most of the thievery and corruption is all around water. It's fascinating. We'll be talking about that 3 p.m. Pacific on February 8th, this coming Thursday. You get all sorts of things on Club Twit, and $7 a month. That's all it costs. More importantly, it really helps us keep doing what I think we do better than anybody else. We're not here to get your clicks. We're not trying to generate phony controversy. We're really interested in the future of technology and technology as it applies to you. And if you value that, I would appreciate it if you'd show us by joining Club Twit. twit.tv/Club Twit. And I thank you in advance. We do have a little video we can show, yes, for everybody so they can see what they missed last week on Twit. Watch. Oh my God, Jason, you're the ugliest version of you.
I am a robot zombie from the future.
Previously on Twit. Hands on Tech.
I woke up this morning to pick up the Apple Vision Pro headset.
Uh-oh. Here comes Tyrannosaurus Rex. Oh! She came out of the screen.
Windows Weekly.
All right, so Microsoft's earnings came out.
Microsoft kept warning us that they were going to have a tough year in 23. And that's why they were laying off, and that's why they're doing the cutbacks. And all they've had is record year over year.
Well, that's everybody in the tech industry. And they've already, in this month alone, 25,000 tech jobs up in smoke.
Security Now.
If you were wondering whether you would ever have an actual need for that 15 terabyte hard drive you purchased recently, well, yes. There would be 3 terabytes left over after you transferred the Moab breach, the largest collection of stolen user data ever discovered.
This week in Google.
Elon has put a chip in somebody's brain. This is actually scary. A 7-foot-tall robot named R1.
Why is it 7 feet tall?
Gotta be big.
Why does it have a name?
That was the size of the one that went after my prostate. Yeah, I walked into the operating room and then looked up and just said, "Be nice to me."
This is your brain. This is your brain on Twit. Any questions?
That is a terrifying thought. Thank you for putting that in my head. Google, okay, I'm a little disappointed. Google has announced it's abandoning one more thing that Google's giving up. Do you ever, when you look for a Google search and you see that the website is gone, but there is a cache? I use that all the time. Google is retiring the cache link. They are no longer going to save, even though they're looking at all these pages, they're no longer going to save the previous page for cache. Cache is working now, but it will stop working. You're going to see it go away in the near future, according to Danny Sullivan, who is now the spokesperson for Google. He writes on Twitter, "Yes, it's been removed. I know, it's sad. I'm sad too." It's one of our oldest features. But it was meant for helping people access pages way back when, and you couldn't always get a page to load. These days, things have greatly improved, so it was decided to retire it. It was decided by somebody, we don't know who. Some imaginary person at Google who doesn't have a name. Danny says maybe someday we'll add links to the Internet Archive. Oh, sure, just put it on Brewster Kahle. Just let him do all the hard work and the heavy lifting. What do you think? Wes, smart move. You were smart move.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, thinking about all the regulations, we just talk about COPA.
Right.
They literally were housing the data that's there.
Oh.
And so that makes them liable for what is actually on their own servers. So they can't point and say, well, we're just an index. yes, but they're an index that's now making copies and then they're servicing that copy. And so if there's offending information in that copy, it's on their server. So for liability reasons, it makes sense to me.
That makes more sense than, we're losing money on this, we have to stop doing it. It's risky to do it. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Let Internet Archive get sued.
Exactly.
Okay. I love the cojones.
I mean, it's for us. I mean, I love being able to. It's very. I mean, they're still going to have the data. They're just not going to serve it to anyone.
Right.
They're just not going to share it with us.
Right.
Exactly.
Most recently, this was valuable when Cox Media Group, remember they put out a page that said, hey, with advertisers, wouldn't you love to know what people are talking about when in their private conversations? Well, we know, and we can sell that to you because we listen in on TVs, cars, and Alexa. And as soon as the world got a hold of that, the Cox Media Group took it down immediately, but Google had cached the page so people could see it and know that they said that. For that reason alone, this is very valuable to hold people accountable for stuff they put up on the internet, newspapers and publications as well. Anyway, if they're a private company, you can't make them. What about this thing that we were talking about, though, in the promo? 25,000 layoffs in January alone this year, hundreds of thousands of layoffs last year, and yet tech is doing really, really well.
It's a way to readjust. It's a way to readjust wages without actually.
Oh, that's. Although Google's, it costs them a lot of money. They spent billions to fire all those people.
Somebody ran the numbers. Look, remember when all these companies got into trouble with salary fixing a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
And the judge is like, don't do that. And all the companies said, we're very, very sorry, we won't do it. And then the pandemic hit and tech hiring went crazy for a while. What's happening now is when these companies do the layoffs and do their hiring in strategic ways, you've got this very talented workforce. And after a couple of months, they begin to get nervous and they'll take a lower paying job someplace else. So this is a way for companies to gently reset wage expectations without people overtly realizing this is what's going on.
Labor was getting too powerful.
Yes, exactly.
Prices were going up.
100%.
You got to break the back of labor. Google's layoff expenses, according to their quarterly results this week, it spent $2.1 billion in severance and related employee charges in 2023. They're going to spend another $700 million in the first quarter of this year.
How does that compare to how much they're spending in salary, though?
Yeah.
Because
it tells you how much they're saving.
If you're going to do the delta and find out that, they're spending X amount in layoff costs, but they're saving X plus 1 in payroll costs over the next 12 months, that's going to make investors super happy. And it puts the fear into all of the kids in tech where this is baby's first layoff. I mean, once...
I hope it doesn't hurt your feelings if I say this, Wesley, but you've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still think that the RTO, return to office, is akin to the same thing. It's a power struggle to kind of bring back dominance. But there are also some other factors. I was having a conversation earlier today about this, that right now the pandemic funds for retaining workers is being
they spent all that.
So they were getting a little kickback from the government for everyone they didn't fire, and now those are going out the window. And also at the same time, with RTO, they're able to say, now you need to come back to the office.
Yeah.
And if someone says no, then now they are violating policy, and now they can let those people go for cause, which means their severance packages aren't needed for that.
Yeah.
And they're still getting some of the same effect. And for the RTO, just buttoning that up, that's tied into taxes, is that a lot of companies that have offices in a lot of different cities, they get tax breaks, and those tax breaks are contingent on saying, we're going to bring this many jobs, or we're going to be supporting all the neighboring businesses around our office because they're going to be eating there and all this stuff. And they can't make that same argument if that worker is remote. So if they say, so they want people in the office buildings so they can still claim and still gather those tax breaks for bringing people into the office. And of course, older workers aren't able to make that move as younger workers are. So it's also getting rid of the older workforce in order to
the ones who have kids and are like I said, the ones who have kids. I settled my kids into school district. I'm not going to up and relocate them.
That's a good point. Yeah,
it's soft layoffs without layoffs. That's how you shake out that segment. It's also, and this is very dark and very dreadful, but remember, remote work was really, really good for differently abled workers. It was great for queer workers. It was great for non-white workers. It was great for working mothers because they were able to decouple productivity from presence and show that the productivity numbers were still super high. People still really produced when they were in a 100% remote environment. And the populations I mentioned didn't have to deal with the additional burden of microaggressions or navigating social exclusion of the office. Instead, they were able to prove that they were valuable contributors. But once you go back to, you have to be in the office, what you're doing is you're effectively saying you have to go back to this environment that overtly privileges some classes of worker and overtly disadvantages other classes of worker. But if you don't go back, you just won't have a job.
If more people would listen to the Radical Respect podcast, they could be happier in their work. I'm just saying. And you wouldn't have to. Yeah. So a lot of employers, I think we're kind of in that boat too. We brought everybody back in the office. We're concerned that productivity would go down. I think the real fear as a boss is, they're just eating potato chips and watching TV and pretending to work. Now, I have to say, I do know some tech work. I have a friend who's a tech worker who has 3 full-time jobs. She's not working 120 hours a week. But she can satisfy each of those full-time jobs working at home. They don't know how many hours she's putting in. And so she's working 3 jobs, even though she's not giving them each 40 hours. I bet you.
But is she giving them 100% deliverables?
I guess she is, or she wouldn't have the job, right?
Because that's the other thing is, again, when I said you decouple productivity from presence, the idea of a 40-hour work week was revolutionary when it happened because it was a big shift from we own you. Right. Which was the prevalent from there. But
I remember. I think it was in the Gilded Age when they were trying to do the union busting. And it's a TV show, but I think it's probably fairly accurate. Where the manager said, "People don't need a private life. What are you talking about? They don't need to. Yeah. They don't need to go home and spend time with their family. They can work 14-hour days. What's wrong with that?"
But you've seen this move in the workplace towards OKRs and towards all of these things that are measurable and quantifiable. Why should that be tied? So who cares if it's 40 hours? Yeah. Exactly. If you can turn it out in 10 hours a week, good for you. Vaya con Dios. Enjoy the beach. And if it takes you 50 hours, well, that's how you're working.
We feel that way. I mean, we're actually looking at how we could have editors work at home more. And as long as they finish the show and it's done well and it's done professionally and competently, we don't care if it took them 10 hours or 2 hours. That shouldn't matter. I mean,
if the task that you're paying somebody for explicitly requires full attention or full presence, that's one thing.
Yeah, if you're Homer Simpson in a nuclear power plant, you got to watch the meters. Okay, fine.
Or if you're a teacher, for example, if you're somebody where your job is to manage a classroom,
or a barista.
You're obviously you're not going to be working as a teacher at 2 separate school districts and zooming into classes. That's not sustainable. And that's not you executing your job to the best of your abilities and to the best of the students. But if you're, say, a software developer and you manage to pick up parallel gigs, as long as you can deliver, why not? Or I would say even let's say you're a staff writer. Let's say your job is to churn out SEO content. If it only takes you 25 hours a week to do that, why shouldn't you pick up another job where you're doing something similar for somebody else?
One of the things
the problem is that the infrastructure is all built upon us going, driving cars, paying for buildings, eating at the place that we're at, and spending copious amounts of time that are dealing with their jobs. We found out that when people spend time at home, they start to think, they start to demand things, they start to want things, they question things. And so similar to like gladiatorial arenas to keep people busy and occupied and doing things, the entire infrastructure is fed upon us giving this random amount of time, the 40 hours, which was, thanks to unions was actually much less than what it says, as Lisa was mentioning. But now people are like, you know what, why should I have to give my entire 1/3 of my life, and the other 1/3 is to sleep, So really, you don't have that much time to be able to deal with things. And after COVID, people realized that it was all kind of predicated on a lie to be able to feed the big system, to be able to feed the governments. And that's why, everyone wants us to go back to work, even though we now know from the data that it isn't necessary, it doesn't help. And then people can ask for much more pay. They get much more free time. They have much more money. But then people can do stuff that might, again, rebel rouse the entire system as we know it.
Fortune just reported that employees who return to the office are spending an average of $561 a month on related return to office expenses.
Yeah.
And that's the equivalent of the average grocery bill for a two-person household for a month. And what Georgia also mentioned there when she talks about, it comes down to where you're spending money and things like that. There's this huge narrative, San Francisco's in a doom spiral. It's dying. And I will cop if you're walking through South of Market or you're on parts of Market Street or the financial district, you're like, the energy is just super different. But if you go to the Richmond district, the Sunset, Chinatown, North Beach, the Mission, any of the places where there's a mix of residents,
fantastic.
Those places are packed.
We went to
astonishing.
Japantown a couple of days ago for Lisa's birthday. It was wonderful. We had so much fun, and it was jammed. Whereas, but it's a funny thing because the same kids who jammed Japantown now, which is up in the avenues, used to go to the Metreon downtown, and the Metreon is looks like a disaster zone.
You could go bowling through there. Yeah. Well, it's even the same thing in the small East Bay city I live in. You can't get a table at coffee shops during a weekday between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. There are always people just holding down tables. There's people walking their dogs, the people picking up their kids from school. Like the rhythm of daily life for a certain class of worker where presence and productivity are divorced, like that rhythm's completely changed. And I understand, like,
You should see
really
what it's
hard to read.
You should see what it's like in Roanoke. I mean, it's incredible. It's just a happening. What's the name of that coffee shop, Wesley?
Mill Mountain Coffee. Oh my God, I love them so much.
Washington Post.
Such fun memories.
This week, U.S. economy is booming. So why are tech companies laying off workers? And one of the things they're saying is a lot of these tech workers, after their second, third, fourth layoff, aren't going back to tech. They're retraining. They're getting into a different sector. They're saying, I have had it enough. I don't really blame them.
I know, and like some are just changing industries within tech. Like I know I'm a developer relations where we do a lot of outreach. We go to a lot of conferences, but a lot of people are just leaving and going into software gigs because they said it's more stable. I heard that Dell's like refactoring their marketing. I think that they removed a whole bunch of people from marketing. And there's a lot of that where there's vulnerable jobs within tech that people are shifting to jobs that are either more transferable, like being a developer, or things that are just less risky in general, or maybe they're becoming actors, something a little bit more stable.
Let me take a quick break, and then we're going to say goodbye to an old friend. I like to save the obituaries to the end of the show. This one's not so sad. You're watching This Week in Tech. Japan is saying goodbye to the floppy disk. It's the end of the line for the 3.5-inch floppy. Apparently, until now, a required medium for submitting documents to the government. 1,900 different official documents. They had to be submitted on floppy. Last week, the Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry in Japan announced confirmed plans to revise the law, saying, under the current law, there are many provisions stipulating the use of specific recording media, such as floppy disks regarding applications and notification methods. Here we are, 2024. The rules have now been amended to delete mention of physical media like floppy disks and CD-ROMs, as well as more abstract categories like electronic recording media. However, there are a few people still behind it. Sony stopped making floppies in 2011, by the way. Tom Persky runs floppydisk.com, which is probably the last place in the U.S. you can buy floppy disks. He says, I can't buy them anymore, but what I do, I remember reading this interview with him. What I do is I go into people's closets, companies that are shutting down, and find surplus floppy disks, which I then can sell back, probably mostly to the Japanese government. So if you're looking, wow, for a 100-pack of Sony brand, remember they stopped making these 2011, 13 years ago, 100-pack of Sony brand black with metal shutter, double-sided HD IBM format, 1.44 megabyte. Yes, that's right, megabyte diskettes. Only $1 each, kids. If you need them, add them to the cart. Or you want them in multiple colors, you can get them that way too. Assorted brands. Persky says, we continue to recycle and resell discs, but the majority of our business is acquiring and selling old used stock. There are an unbelievable number of warehouses across the world with a pallet of floppy disks lost in the back. That's pretty funny.
Reality show.
Part of me wants a what? A reality show? Yes, that'd be awesome. I'd watch it. I would like to see the person in the back room who receives all these floppy disks for the Japanese government and how they maintain this and the size of that warehouse. But it'd be also cool if they, instead of just saying, okay, no more floppy disks, we're going to update our standards, they need to be on zip disks. That would be hilarious as well.
Zip disks. Make them buy zip disks. So thanks to Brandon Villaro of the Register for that great reminder of the good old days. The floppy disk. It may be over for the floppy disk. Hey, good news if you believe in peak TV. I remember at the last Emmy Awards, it was widely agreed, peak TV's over. This is it. Succession's done. We've seen all the best shows. We're not going to see any more good shows. Amazon's content spending rose 14% last year, spending $19 billion. There's Jack Reacher, good-looking fella, on new content for Amazon. That's kind of amazing. It's not just Amazon. Netflix, Apple, still spending billions in creating content. Some of that money from Amazon was Thursday Night Football, by the way. They spent a lot of money on Thursday Night Football.
Leo, did the argument break down how that money was spent?
I shall see here. Let's see.
Because what I'm super curious about is if that increase in spending was because the NFL is very, very good at extracting money.
Oh, they are.
Or if that increase has to come to buying intellectual property, or if it's in casting. Because if you look at some of their high marquee projects, they've got really big names. Those guys cost money.
Yeah. Amazon's paying $1 billion a year to the NFL for one game a week for 18 weeks. That's a lot of money. I don't know. Do the math. What's $1 billion divided by 18? However, Andy Jassy, CEO of Amazon, in their their earnings call, said Thursday Night Football has been, quote, a rousing success by all accounts. What about your account, Andy? And overall viewers increased 24%. Wow. I don't know what happened. I think the power went out. I know the power went out. It got very dark in the studio, so I've run home to wrap this up. Fortunately, we had pretty much finished the show. I only had, I think, 1 or 2 stories more to do. So let me just thank our great guests, Wesley Faulkner from the Radical Respect podcast. It's always great to see Wesley. Georgia Dow, Westmount Therapy, and of course, youtube.com/Georgia Dow. And Lisa Schmeiser, editor-in-chief at No Jitter. They were great. You were great. I appreciate your listening. Thanks to all our Club TWiT members who make this show possible. They keep paying the power bill so this doesn't happen again. I'm Leo Laporte. I hope you'll join us next week. It's Super Bowl Sunday, so we're going to get started right at 2 o'clock Eastern. That's 2 o'clock Pacific. That's 5 Eastern, 2200 UTC. And we'll get out of the show as quick as we can so you can watch the big game. You can watch us do this live at youtube.com/twit. After the fact, you can get copies of the show at our website, twit.tv. There's a YouTube channel dedicated to This Week in Tech. And of course, the best thing you could do is subscribe in your favorite podcast player. That way you'll get it automatically the minute we're done. I'm Leo Laporte. Thanks for joining us. And I think this has to be the weirdest ending ever, but another twit is in the can. We'll see you next week.
Doing the twit.